You gain weight by having high insulin levels, and that's that. The only thing that can, the only thing that can get sugar into your cells that tells you to make fat, to store fat. The primary hormone for that is insulin. So if you're not making enough insulin, then you could lose weight. If you're not making enough insulin, your blood sugar goes up. So the next test that needs to be done are pancreas tests. What is your insulin level? What is your C-peptide level? So if you don't have those, then get those tests first to see if you have good pancreas function. Because if you have low insulin,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. We have Joe Barton in the house today, myself, and Dr. Scott Saunders. We're excited
Hello.
to chat with you guys about type 2 diabetes today. As you hop on, will you do me a favor and in the chat just mention where you are tuning in from? Because we'd like to see where you guys are coming from, where you're tuning in from. It's just fun to kind of see where you all are. If any of you are close to me, I'm in South Dakota. Joe's in South Dakota. Dr. Saunders, where are you coming from today?
Goleta, Santa Barbara.
Goleta. All right. Those of you who've been on the webinar before, you may notice that Dr. Saunders looks a little bit different. So we don't know what happened. We wanted to wait until we hopped on live to ask him. All right. Now, Dr. Saunders, what's going on?
Okay, last weekend, I spent some time with some kids out in a camp, and around here they have ground squirrels that make dens, and they make huge holes, and it was kind of covered by grass. So I stepped in this huge hole. I just was not expecting it at all. Went straight down and hit the ground.
Oh man.
So, yeah, it actually hurts you a lot more than it hurts me. I don't even notice it because I don't see it and I don't feel it. So people come in, my people in my office come in and go, "Oh my gosh, what happened to you?" And I'm like, what? And they're like, "Your face." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I got those scabs on my face."
It doesn't look terrible. It could have been worse.
It could have been worse.
Battle scars. The proper response is, how's the other guy look? Like, how did the ground look after that?
Yeah, well, I was trying to make up stories because ground squirrels, come on, that's not a good story. You got to have a bear or a bobcat or, something like cool, but all I got were ground squirrels.
Oh, those pesky squirrels. Wow.
Funny. Well, we're glad you're okay and it wasn't something more serious.
Yeah. Thanks.
You've got an event-filled month here, Dr. Saunders. Like,
oh my gosh. So tomorrow I go to Utah for my son's wedding, and then my dad's funeral is coming up on Monday, and then the next Thursday is my other son's wedding. So two weddings and a funeral in 1 week.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And yeah, you were with us in northern Minnesota. You were where was that hiking trip though? Where did you say that was?
Here? Oh, it's Paradise.
Okay, because we were on the webinar with you last week when you were about to take off and you looked fine at that point. So.
That's right. That's right. I was there. Yeah.
You were there. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. We have people from California, Daytona Beach, Keith, Rochester, New York, Ecuador. Hello, Carl. Thanks for joining. I'm going to say this wrong because he's told me, I think this is the same person, Stefan, I think is how you pronounce his name, in the Netherlands. We have Tennessee, Florida, California, Ohio. I just drove to Ohio a few weeks ago from South Dakota, Florida, California, Utah, Michigan, Rosemary, Nigeria. Verna is in Idaho. We have so many people on and lots of you are coming back. So this is great. Susan, how are you? Beverly's here from Pennsylvania. John says, owie. I agree. It does look not fun. Okay, North Carolina. Could have been concrete, Keith says. That's true. That would have been terrible.
That's true. Ground squirrels don't dig holes in concrete.
True. But that would have been much worse. Hey, and look at this. We're already getting questions. So you know what? I think this is going to be a good little segue here. Guys, most of the time when we are on these webinars, we are talking about how do you reverse your type 2 diabetes? And primarily, we mention the Diabetes Solution Kit quite often. So if you're not familiar with this is the bread and the butter. This is the magic. This is the key to it all. And you can find this at bartonwebinar.com. Many of you already have this. And so we may reference some things in this book. You'll hear us say phase 1, phase 2. Those are all in this. And this is basically the program that Dr. Saunders recommends to his patients in his office. Okay, so you can get this in this paper copy, or you can get a downloadable version. Either way, for very much cheaper than you can get it if you go see Dr. Saunders in person. So sorry, Dr. Saunders. But anyway,
Hey,
so
you get what you pay for.
if you hear us reference this, know that this is what we're talking about. Carl says among the free foods is maple syrup. How is this possible when it has so much sugar content? I don't even know if I know that maple syrup's on there.
Maple syrup? Well, if that's on there, then it should be removed. I don't know how.
I would
that got
hope
to
that we
be
didn't
free
put that
food.
in there, but now I can't remember what pages. I might have to look that up because it should
How
not
could
be
I
there.
have missed that?
Hey, I'll have to look that up. But so basically the answer is it should not be in there. If yours says maple syrup, it should not say maple syrup.
Cross it out.
Can you
Or
imagine?
we
I
were
mean,
referring to the invisible maple syrup that like you just have an empty bottle and pour it on and imagine this with maple syrup and then no calories.
Well, even that'll cause your insulin to go up.
That's
That's right.
that is true.
Visualize,
Imagine.
no taste.
And I mean, like my dog is the perfect example of that, by the way. If I hold out like a treat, my dog salivates all over the place. And it's like,
Oh.
our buddy does that too. Dr. Saunders talks a lot about that. First of all, I need to do a disclaimer before we even talk anymore. Dr. Saunders is not your doctor, so please consult with your medical professional before you implement any of the things that we may suggest today. Before we dig into this a little bit more, let's suppose that there are some people who are new here. They've just found out they have type 2. Can you give us a quick idea of what is happening in the body when someone has type 2 diabetes?
Okay, so let's say that that you are in your kitchen and you turn the water on and your sink starts filling up with water. And so you're going, darn, the drain is plugged. And the sink keeps filling up. And you go, oh, I got to talk to the plumber. So you call the plumber. The plumber says, well, is it all the way full? And you say, no. And then the plumber says, well, that's okay. Just call me back if it overflows. And so the sink keeps filling up. And then it starts overflowing. So you call the plumber back and you say, plumber, we've got a problem here. The sink's overflowing. And he says, get a mop. So you start getting a mop and start mopping it up. And that's not keeping the floor dry, but at least it's not spreading all over the place. But it's overflowing more and more. So you call the plumber, it's overflowing more. What do I do now? And he says, get another mop. And then, so you've got 2 mops in there. You got your wife in there working, and then it's overflowing more and you're not keeping up with it. And you're wringing out the mop as much as you can. And you call the plumber again, says, we're not working here with the 2 mops. He says, well, Doug, get a 3rd mop. So you got your kids in there with the mop and you're there with the mop and we're wringing out mops and going as fast as we can to try and keep that water off of the out of the kitchen, right? So it doesn't flood the whole kitchen. And it's starting to flood the whole kitchen. So that's what diabetes is. Essentially, when we eat, every time we eat, we fill up with sugar and glucose. And as we eat more, we fill up more with glucose. Well, that's fine as long as you've got a good drain. So the drain is like those cells, and the cells have insulin receptors on them. And the insulin receptors let sugar into the cell because the cell needs energy, right? And so that's just working just fine until the cells fill up with too much energy. So they're filling up, and then they get blocked up. They stop making insulin receptors. So you can't get any more sugar into the cells. They're blocked up. So then you start overflowing. You start spilling sugar into your blood. And now your blood sugar's going up. So you go to the doctor. The doctor says, you have diabetes. And you're like, okay, what's diabetes? What do I do? And he says, get a mop. And here's a mop. It's a little pill. And so they give you a pill, or sometimes an injection. And what does the pill do? Well, it mops up all that extra sugar. And then you go back and you say, well, yeah, it helped a little bit, but my blood sugar's still high. Oh, get another one. So now you're on 2 medications. And then it's still high, so you get a 3rd medication, and sometimes a 4th or even a 5th. And so you're taking all these medications, trying to mop up all that excess sugar in your blood. What we do is totally different, totally different. What is the most reasonable thing to do when your sink is filling up and it's clogged and your sink is filling up? What's the most reasonable thing to do? Turn off the water. Just turn it off. That's all. If the plumber would have said, turn off the water, then your sink would have never overflowed in the first place, and you would have never needed a single mop. That's the issue right there. So if you go to your doctor and your doctor says, get a mop, that might not be the right thing. The first thing your doctor should say is turn off the sugar. And that's what we do. So what Leslie was just showing you the book, phase 1 of that program is turn off the sugar. Just literally turn it off. And so you get a 20-gram carbohydrate diet. It's not enough to run your body on, so that you don't have to drain it out, because it's not going to overflow because you're not getting enough in the first place. So then what happens is your water eventually kind of goes down, and then you can unclog the sink. And that's what phase 1 continues to do. As the blood sugar goes down and down, then those cells that are all full up with sugar, then they start going down and down and down, and then they open up and they need more sugar. So then the insulin starts working again. That's the program. That's what it is. It's really simple. Turn off the water. That's all you got to do. Unclog the sink. Those are the only 2 things you need to do. That's what we do. We don't give you mops. In fact, I tell my patients, you don't want a mop. You want to turn off the water first and then unclog the sink. So when you read the book, think in terms of, oh, how do I turn off the water? How do I stop sugar from getting into my body? Well, don't eat it. That's as simple as it gets. And that's what the program is really about.
How long do you think it takes for someone to actually be able to not be craving sugar when doing this program? I had a question about that. Someone said, I can do this for about 3 days and then I kind of stop. And they've been doing this for about 3 weeks where they're kind of off and on, where they can do it for 3 days and then it's hard again. But they've already lost 14 pounds, even though they're struggling to stick with the system.
Beautiful. Thank you. That is a beautiful, you answered the question better than I could have ever answered it. I've been off sugar for 20 years and I still crave it. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
And sometimes I eat it. I had some apple pie at the retreat. So I don't know. I had some chocolate covered raisins at the retreat. I love chocolate covered raisins.
I had to hide those from you.
Yeah, you should have hid them from me.
I'm going to go ahead and chat a little bit here. Here's our free foods that we talked about kind of as we started this webinar. And I'm just going to mention, Carl had said that maple syrup was on there, and he is actually correct. But what I'm going to tell you is that it's the sweet substitute options that we put in there are maple syrup or fruit sweetened things. And that isn't going to be for those of you in phase 1. I can tell you that. When you're in phase 1, your goal is to not have sweet things. Later, as you progress, and you kind of see how your body responds to things, if you feel like you want to try to add a sweetener, those are some options. But Dr. Saunders will tell you that well, I guess I could let him tell you that sweeteners whether they're artificial or they seem natural, they still can trigger that same response in your body as if you were to eat a spoonful of straight sugar, right? So you do need to be careful, but I can understand how that would be confusing that we mentioned that there. So I just want to address that. In fact, I'm gonna put a little note in my notebook here for us to think about that if we review it at some point.
Yeah, someone asked about honey too. Honey's the same issue. If it's sweet, retreat. Don't.
I love it.
The taste of sweet is enough to, like Jack LaLanne said, if it tastes good, spit it out.
Oh, this is another
Just to
fun question.
clarify, so we did list it on page 36 of the printed as a sweet substitute maple syrup, and up above it says foods that contain less than 5 grams or less of carbohydrates. So technically you could, but I was just looking at the label here, happen to have a little maple syrup in the fridge. So 2 tablespoons of maple syrup is 27 grams of carbs. So you would have to use 1/5 of 2 tablespoons to be at 5 grams. So that's like maybe 2/3 of a teaspoon. And that's
You gotta
not
be
a lot.
real desperate for sugar at that point.
Yeah. So it's like, why even bother? Because it's just gonna, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but good question. Thank
But
you for
can have
bringing
a
that up.
teensy bit. Like if you really, you're gonna die without that. I mean, it's
Yeah,
better to have
right.
a taste of maple syrup than die, but
You know what? Let's just dig into this because I know I'm gonna get more questions about it and I can already see them coming in. We're gonna get a lot of questions that say, what about sugar-free drinks? What about water? We have a question about water that's maybe flavored. What about sugar-free maple syrup? What about Diet Coke? What's up with these sweeteners? Actually, we just did a webinar called What's Up with Sweeteners, now that I think about it. But why do we want to avoid these?
Okay, so the primary problem in type 2 is insulin resistance. The problem is not sugar. Remember, the sugar is like the water. The water's overflowing. But if you look at the water as the problem, excuse me, then what you're doing is mopping up constantly because, but that's not really the problem. The problem is that those cells can't get sugar into them, and that's called insulin resistance. So if you have insulin resistance, you want to decrease that. You want to have insulin sensitivity. And if you're eating sweet things, even artificial sweeteners, in fact, the studies on Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi did a study. There was one on just generally sugar sodas versus diet sodas. People gain more weight on diet sodas than they do on sugar sodas. Why is that? Because the diet has an artificial sweetener that is, first of all, they're like 300 times sweeter than sugar. And so they cause a lot of release of insulin. And then you don't have any sugar to back that up. So now you have insulin resistance forming worse than if you had eaten a sugar drink. So people are going to, I know several of my friends, oh yeah, I only drink the Mexican Coke sodas because they use real sugar. And I'm like, okay, fine. But still, that's still an issue. It's not that it's no issue. It's the point that we make is that the diet sodas are in many ways worse. And we've had several people on this program, and I've had several patients that have said, my blood sugar was normal until I started chewing gum that was artificially sweetened gum. And so, yeah, you need to be a purist and say absolutely nothing with flavors. So then those flavored waters like those, they have all kinds of things now. The sodas with just the grapefruit flavoring or lemon flavoring or that kind of thing. Those are a problem too, for the same reason that your dog salivates when you start getting the food out and they start slobbering all over the floor. That the smell, the taste cause your body to prepare for digesting and absorbing that food, which includes insulin. So yes, water, carbonated water is fine. And what's really interesting, black coffee, black tea, the bitter drinks, the taste of bitter does not induce insulin. The taste of sweet or the smell of sweet can. But so people can drink black coffee, black tea, and water, and not have an insulin response.
David said he had asked, what about phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit recipes with stevia in them, like pancakes and chocolate mousse? We, as a team, had kind of decided to make a couple options with sweeteners in them, which was not what Dr. Saunders wanted, to be honest. And, we've talked about this before. We have our fiber green supplement that is wonderful, but it is low carb, but it also does have sweetener. And so,
Stevia.
yeah. And so, those are things that we still would recommend that you don't do in phase 1 until you find out how your body responds. So kind of look at it as phase 1 is where you're kind of learning to biohack your body. You're figuring out how your body works, what it responds to. And, but these are really good questions. Yeah, if we could figure out a way to make chocolate mousse without any sweetener, that would be really fun. I have a feeling it would not taste good, but if we could figure it out, it'd be lovely. But good questions. Okay, I'm going to dig into some more of these Q&A here. Let's see. Calvin said, going through all the material sent to me a little over a week ago, I noticed there isn't any books or reading material on blood sugar, just this webinar. Did I miss something? Calvin, did you order the diabetes solution kit and you just haven't received it? Let us know. In fact, actually, if you want to email, you can comment or just send an email to support@bartonpublishing.com and they would love to help you. In fact, they'll be quicker at figuring it out for you than I will be able to, unfortunately. Let's see here. Roger says, hey, Doc, what is the American Diabetes Association's fasting blood sugar range? For example, 70 to 99, 80 to 110. What is their range for the first blood sugar check in the morning? And what is your morning blood sugar range? Great question, Roger.
Okay, so the ADA, American Diabetes Association, essentially says your morning fasting blood sugar should be under 100. And they generally put like 75 to 100 kind of thing. The optimum range for those who have no insulin resistance is between 70 and 90.
Hey, I've got a question regarding that because this is interesting. So in the topic of heart health, blood pressure and cholesterol numbers are both like overstated by the American Heart Association, as far as like, basically they say blood pressure ideally should be under 120/80. You've said actually ideally it should be under 140/80. And then the same with cholesterol. I forget the exact numbers, but like 220 to 240 is ideal, where they would say it's 200 or less. So are you saying on the diabetes side or blood sugar side, they actually have it right? And so like that 100 number is actually legit and even beyond that, as opposed to like 110 is actually ideal. So you've seen like research and studies. I'd be curious about that.
Yeah, so in the case of blood sugar, mostly what they do is take normal people and get a broad spectrum and do a whole bunch of tests, tens of thousands of tests, and then put them together and make a bell curve and say, okay, these people, the 95% of people are considered normal. And you got to figure that today, because of our diet, because we've been on carbs for 20 or 30 years, that a majority of people, in fact, it is a majority clearly, because the majority of people are overweight. So we know that that their blood sugar is going to be a little skewed to the high side. So taking an average of normal people is not necessarily an optimum level. So what I look at is a different test, is what is the optimum level of blood sugar? What gives you the best insulin sensitivity? And that's the fasting blood sugar between 70 and 90. And so in the 70s or 80s, yeah. Whereas they go up to 100, 90 to 100 is fine in the ADA.
Mm-hmm. So really like disease prevention, that range is like 70 to 87 to 90.
Yeah.
And like, well, and that's a whole nother topic, like what is disease? But really, when you start seeing those more like the symptoms and this, problems and neuropathy and brain fog and all that kind of stuff, that's when things start going upside down. Whereas with heart disease, they tell you cholesterol should be lower, but actually, no, you're just fine. Like it might show your cholesterol level is at or your blood pressure is at, but you actually aren't going to have any other like problematic symptoms to threaten your
Oh,
life.
yeah, you're right. With cholesterol, it's completely different because if you actually take into account what they're telling you to do, your death rate goes up as your cholesterol goes down. And so that's a bigger risk to follow those guidelines. Those guidelines are actually riskier than not following the guidelines and being in the optimum range of 140 to 160.
So good time to plug the heart health webinar, Leslie, as I have to go get my charger for my laptop before it dies.
That's funny. And those of you who don't know, we actually do 2 webinars each week. So we have this one that's focused on type 2 diabetes, but tomorrow at 12 noon Central, we actually do a healthy heart webinar as well. And that is with Dr. Saunders and Cheryl, who some of you have probably met before. And we talk about all things healthy heart, and it is really good. We've had a great response to that, and it's super fun. So be sure to come for that. You can register for that at bartonwebinar.com. But we've been talking about this. We've been talking about that curve that he's talking about and where we should fit into that and what it looks like. One of the really exciting things that we've learned on the past couple of Healthy Heart webinars is that according to Dr. Saunders' research, you actually should be a little bit higher on the BMI index. And that was exciting. So, all this time, a lot of us were like, we're just a little bit overweight. And guess what? We're healthier. Who knew? So we were excited about that, but we're learning a lot of good stuff. We love that Dr. Saunders is doing the research. He doesn't just accept what people are telling him. He actually digs in and looks at the numbers and the data and all of that. So love it. Okay, so this is very interesting. Brian, you win, I don't know what you win, but you win some award today because you knew that today is show 200. Today is actually our 200th episode of our Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. So great job. Brian, you've been around for a while, so thank you for being here. If you guys have been here, let us know how many episodes you think you guys have watched. Type it in the chat. I would love to hear that. It's always fun. And if today's your first one, welcome. We have some people who've been here for a long time with people who kind of come and go, but I tell you what, I learned something on every single one of these webinars. It is.
And you must be smart after 200 of them.
I mean, I'm going to start my own show soon. I already know everything. I'm basically a doctor at this point, right?
Well, that's actually not as off kilter as you might think. Like the more of these we watch, I seriously feel like I've learned so much that I can help people more. And just thinking from the people that are watching, like our customers and guests, the more they're listening and partaking, I know they're just this just makes the living the lifestyle so much easier. So it's just they say that you become like the 5 people you hang around most. And hey, if you're hanging around Dr. Saunders, if he's one of your 5, that's a pretty good deal right there. So, yeah.
You're right. In fact, I know many of you on this webinar right now could probably lead this webinar because you've done all of the hard stuff and you help other people in the chat. So you guys are awesome. Roy says over 100. Oh my goodness. That is amazing.
Right, Roy.
Sue's seen 50 to 75 episodes, almost a year now. Archie, your first one. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Nancy, 15. Sienna has watched since mid-May, probably around 25 for David. You guys, this is amazing. So Greg, you're over a year that you've been watching. That is awesome.
Look at Roy, lost over 85 pounds since he started. And 100 episodes. So, woo, that's awesome. It's like a pound an episode.
Oh, the Garcias are here too. Yay. They've been around since April of last year, and they have actually helped several other people. You bet you have. You could lead this. You could definitely lead this webinar.
If they can do it, anyone can.
Yep, I think they said that. Yep, they did say that. You guys, yay, that's so exciting. I love this. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go back to some more questions. Sherry, 4th or 5th episode, welcome. Yay. Well, good deal. This is fun to know. Krish is also, Krish, you've been around for a while. I've also been taking Healthy Gut. Okay, yep. Okay, let's see, more questions. Sally says, the last webinar I viewed, it said that berberine has milk thistle added. I've read not to take milk thistle if you're taking Prozac or a high cholesterol drug. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so that is an interesting question because milk thistle is something that helps the liver to what's called conjugate, helps the liver to detox. So the liver has to take care of all the toxins. So everything you eat is going to go through your liver before it gets to your body. And so if you take milk thistle, you're going to detox better, faster. And so guess what? If you're taking a medication that's toxic, what's going to happen? You're going to detox that medication and it's not going to work. So they say, don't take that detox milk thistle because you'll ruin the toxicity of our medication and what it's supposed to do. So yeah, just ignore all of that. That's fine. It's not a problem
Wow.
because you probably shouldn't be taking that medication anyway.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Drop the mic right there. Awesome.
All right. Some really good questions coming in. Okay, so Debbie has lost 58 pounds and her A1C has gone down only to 7.4 from 9.8 for the last 3 months, which still seems really good though.
That's good.
I was just told I have a hyperthyroid and told to use methimazole 10 milligrams. What do you think of that medication? I did just get off a 5-day fast, which does not get my numbers in the 89 range on a daily basis.
Wow. Huh. Okay. So there may be something else going on there. So check your insulin levels, check your adrenal glands, adrenal hormone levels. Methimazole is something that inhibits your thyroid gland from making thyroid. So it prevents you from getting hyperthyroid. But remember that it's really only for symptoms. It doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't stop your thyroid from making, it does, slows it down, but only during the time that you're taking the medication. And it's really for symptoms. So if you have symptoms of hyperthyroidism, if you're sweating a lot and you're hot, even when it's 60 degrees outside, you're burning up. If you're have diarrhea and your eyes are popping out of your head and you're shaky, have a nervous, jittery, then that's symptoms of hyperthyroid. In that case, methimazole might be an appropriate thing. But finding out why your thyroid is high might be more useful. So knowing that, having tests done, they should have like an ultrasound of your thyroid and look for, are there any hot nodules? There's other tests that might be done to find out what the problem is. And if something needs to be fixed or repaired, do that first. But in the meantime, yeah, you can take methimazole, but just remember, it's just for symptoms. And if you're not having any symptoms, then don't bother taking it.
All right. I have 2 questions about this same thing. I had an email that came in, and then this is a message here from Pat from Pennsylvania. Been with the protocol for months and I've lost too much weight. Can I still reverse my pre-diabetes? My numbers are too high if I try to gain weight. What's the best way to gain weight?
Okay, so you gain weight by having high insulin levels, and that's the only thing that can get sugar into your cells that tells you to make fat, to store fat. The primary hormone for that is insulin. So if you're not making enough insulin, then you could lose weight. If you're not making enough insulin, your blood sugar goes up. So the next test that needs to be done are pancreas tests. What is your insulin level? What is your C-peptide level? So if you don't have those, then get those tests first to see if you have good pancreas function. Because if you have low insulin, you're losing weight and you have diabetes, you have a totally different problem. That's either type 1 or type 1.5. Type 1.5 means your pancreas still makes insulin, but it's not enough. Type 2 is it's too much insulin. Type 1 is you don't make any insulin at all. So there's that kind of 1.5 where you're making some insulin, but it's not enough. In which case the treatment might be really different. You might actually need insulin injections or some of the medications we've talked about before. And not metformin, they would be the other ones like glimepiride or glipizide, and those that cause your pancreas to put out extra insulin. So look at that first. If you're losing weight, there's a reason, and it's probably due to a lack of insulin.
That reminds me, there was a question here about Ozempic, and boy, am I hearing more and more and more about Ozempic. Mary says, how much Ozempic should you take to control diabetes 2 and not take metformin anymore? So are people taking Ozempic and metformin together?
Yes, they can be taken together. They work entirely differently. Ozempic is a peptide hormone, actually, that it's kind of funny the way it works. It does increase your insulin somewhat, but mostly it works by the stomach emptying slower, and so you're just not as hungry. And that's really primarily the way it works. And that's why people are losing weight on it. And everybody wants that medication because it's easy to lose weight. And the doctors are giving it out like crazy, like candy. But it's not a long-term solution. Instead of Ozempic, do phase 1 of the program. Because if you're doing phase 1, and you're actually using up all the sugar in the cells and becoming insulin sensitive, that's better than the alternative, which is like Ozempic or any of those other medications. So if you have too much insulin, you have insulin resistance, the phase 1 of the program is still a better choice.
Okay. And again, guys, if you're not sure what the program is, it is the Diabetes Solution Kit. You can get that at bartonwebinar.com. And in fact, there's a discount code for that. Joe, have you shared that already?
I am about to in the chat.
All right, guys, it's webinar 25. I'll just let you know, but he's going to type it in there too. So that'll save you 25% at bartonwebinar.com. You'll find a link to all of our supplements there as well. But Dr. Saunders, tell us why we created the supplements, and will the supplements alone reverse our type 2?
Okay, no, the answer is no. And don't think you're going to take a supplement or a pill or even a medication and reverse your type 2. That's not what they're for. That's not what they do. So if you want to have a normal functioning metabolism, then that's what the book is about. The supplements are an assistance. And so we've had people call up and say, oh my gosh, I started Synachroma and 2 weeks later, like everything became normal. Well, that's an unusual thing. And the unusual part about it is that person is probably diabetic due to a lack of chromium, for example, which you can actually have type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance from a deficiency of chromium. So if you have that deficiency, then you're going to have really good results from Synachroma, right? So people are hoping, oh my gosh, if I take the pill, then everything's okay and I can eat whatever I want. Yeah, maybe, and that does happen if you're really deficient, if that's the cause of it. But the purpose for the supplements is to assist you in doing the book. So you're doing the book, you're doing phase 1 of the program, and you want to be as insulin sensitive as possible. So you need vitamin D, you need chromium, you need vanadium, you need selenium. So all we did, it doesn't have a million ingredients. It just has those few ingredients that are common deficiencies that people need. And cinnamon, no, is not a common deficiency. It's just that's another helper, the cinnamon. It just helps you to be more insulin sensitive.
All right, good stuff.
I was just gonna add to that quick. I was just thinking about how like supplements, like the word itself says it is a supplement to these other things, but like we as humans are complex beings. And so we have, like there's a lot of different things that are important. So food, exercise, sleep, stress, like your vitamins and minerals, toxins, all of those things affect and can contribute to diabetes. So like any one of those things or a multitude of those things could be off. And so if you're good on all those other areas but you're missing selenium and vanadium or chromium, like that might be all you need. And I just like to say, like, the more of those things you can figure out and make right, like the better, more likely you're going to get healthy. And you have to look at past history, like how long have you had it? How much overweight are you? How much damage have you done to your body with different injuries or trauma or whatever? But it's just a holistic approach of working on all of those things, even spiritual things, relationships, like it all matters. So
Definitely.
yeah.
I like this. Brian says, referring to this program, he says, phase 1 is a temporary situation. Just do it and get past it. Get healthy. See,
Wow.
lots
Okay.
of good information from people, but that's just another piece. Like Joe was saying, this is one piece in the journey, right? I know Dr. Saunders has talked about people who were or a woman who was trying to lower her blood sugar, doing all of the things perfectly, but it wasn't until her daughter moved out of the house that she was finally able to do it. She didn't realize she was carrying so much stress from having her grown daughter back in her home. And so, there are lots of circumstances that can affect it. And so, but we do talk about those things in here. We talk about stress, we talk about exercise, figuring out what's your motivation to get healthy and stuff like that, because it's so important.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I like to encourage in life, but even in your health, like if you feel stuck, I like to do what's called a brain dump. And it's like, if you got a bunch of stuff in your head, just like write it on, take a piece of paper and pen and just dump it out of your brain, write it all on paper. And there's something that happens when you do that. And then just get another blank piece of paper after that. And like, I really encourage people just like to be undistracted and like just pray and like listen, and like there will be thoughts or ideas or things that come to mind. Like you can just ask God, like, God, what do I need to do? And like, once you've dumped all that stuff out of your brain, then you've got like a clean slate to listen. And a lot of times the answer will come. And another thing, like, kind of related to this, like, I don't think it's a coincidence that each person on here, 140 people, I think everyone here is here for a reason. And I wouldn't be surprised if you did pray at one time and say, God, I need help, and like found us. And like, that's really, like, we love to hear stuff like that and to know that we're being used to help people, delivering hope and healing. And so don't want to keep that, like, that's a huge part of finding health and answers, is really like asking. Like Jesus said, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be opened unto you. And so just being in that state of asking and looking and seeking, I think is super important, instead of being closed-minded. And like, there's just a lot of stuff we have to unlearn too, like the whole traditional medical system that ingrains us into thinking that doctors are God, like whatever the doctor says is gospel truth. Well, challenge that. Is that really true? Because they're not learning about all these natural remedies and things that we're learning. Dr. Saunders is a unique person in that he actually wants to help people, and he studies and searches for the best way to get to the root cause and to really help people. So that's what is unique about Barton, our company, and Dr. Saunders, and doing these webinars for free, because we do really want to help people. So thanks everyone for being here and like sharing the message and sharing the webinar or our websites or our products with others, because we hope you've seen that we are trying to make a big difference. So Keith said, I thought Dr. Saunders was God. Well, he's a godly man. So
Oh, that's funny.
yeah. All right. I'm gonna
Okay. No, that was so good. And it's funny because I actually just watched an interview where somebody said, if you can sit and get your body quiet enough and your mind quiet enough to even visualize what it looks like to be healthy or to achieve the things that you want, you're probably going to achieve them. And because it's hard to do that, it is hard to do that, but so important. Just even taking time to stop.
Mhm.
It's the hardest part. Okay, so many good messages in here too. Brian, thank you. Vila and Barbie, amen. Joe, you guys are a blessing. We try to do the same thing. God bless. Good stuff here. Yay. Okay, lots of people that are happy and kind. Thank you guys. Okay, I'm gonna dig in here a little bit more before we run out of time. Okay. Roger says A1C result from my June appointment is that my A1C went from 7.3 to 7. The 7.3 A1C was in March of 2023. I'm becoming more and more encouraged as I continue on this true health journey. Thank you all for the push in the right direction. Yay, good job, Roger. Keep up the great work. And guys, if it holds you accountable, just to keep us updated each week, we would be honored to do that for you guys. So post it in the chat or in the Q&A and let us know how you're doing every time you hop on. It's okay to share your struggles too. Other people are going through the same thing. We do also have a Facebook group called Barton Webinar, where it's a private group, but that is a really good place for you guys to interact with each other. We set that up so that you guys could give each other feedback, learn from each other. Who knows? Maybe somebody will stumble upon a good recipe and another person might find a really good, hey, I just found some wall Pilates workouts. I even saw there were some couch Pilates workouts. So, I mean, if that's your thing, there's so many fun things out there that people would love to know what you're enjoying. So, okay. Calvin says, do I understand correctly in saying the book on diabetes is the main material book on blood sugar? Yes. So you know what I think you might be thinking of? We have a lot of these little books that are inside of this. That might be what you're asking. So we have it broken down. We took all these books and put them inside. So yes, this is what you want, and the webinars. You'll get a full education if you do those two things. Okay. I'm on this is from Sienna. I'm on phase 2 of the diabetes solution kit. My blood sugar level can go up if I add some fruit like cherry or apricot. Yesterday, I had a semi-sweet apricot strudel. Oh, this morning, my fasting blood sugar level is 128. It blew my mind. What should I do? Should I go back to phase 1 again?
Yes, you can go back to phase 1. There's a lot of different things you can do, and that's why we allow phase 2 to be different for everybody. What you're doing in phase 2 is you're figuring out your body. So if you say, gosh, every time I eat apples or apricot strudel, I get this, my blood sugar goes up to 120s again. So then you go, okay, I'll have to avoid apricot strudel. That's one way to look at it. There are other things you can do though. And so we talk about like intermittent fasting, like people who have a 5-hour window of eating. You can eat kind of whatever you want in those 5 hours, and then the rest of the time you have clean, and that means only water or black coffee or black tea, and that's all. Nothing with flavor in it and nothing with sweet in it or anything. And so that kind of thing you can do. And people have found when they do that it makes it easier, because then they can like enjoy hamburgers during their 5-hour window of eating and apricot strudel and not have a problem with the next morning the blood sugar being elevated again. Yes, you can go back to phase 1, and we've had several people say they do that too. That they go into phase 2, they go into phase 3. A year later, their blood sugars are in the 120s, and they go, okay, back to phase 1, and they go back to phase 1. That's okay. So that's why we do it sort of in phases, because our question was, how do we individualize this? Yeah, we can give you, everybody gets phase 1 because we're just going to take out all your glucose and allow those cells to use up the sugar so you get insulin sensitive again. So the sink gets unclogged. You're not filling up your sink. That's for everyone. Phase 2 is where you individualize it, and that's where we talk about what works best for you.
Okay, so a good question here. Roy said, is poor blood flow like neuropathy also a contributor to Alzheimer's?
Ooh, yes and no, not really. The neuropathy for the feet, for example, is due to, yes, a lack of blood flow. That's part of it, but the other part is that the nerves aren't getting glucose. So there's a double whammy there, and that's a different issue than the Alzheimer's, because the blood flow to the brain is usually pretty good. But you can get microvascular disease in the brain too, so they can be very much related. Yes, they can.
Interesting. Okay.
Possible.
Let's see. There were a couple of questions here from Eric that I wanted to answer. Let me see here. He says, I love that you do the research. And he says, I'm on a high fiber diet. Do I still have to take my blood pressure medicine? And the doses are 2.5 milligrams of hydrocortisone, Kinepeg, 2 tablets, 10 milligrams.
Huh.
Not sure.
Okay, so hydrocortisone for blood pressure, that wouldn't be right. That doesn't fit very well.
Well, and then there's also, it says the doses, elodipine, 2.5 milligrams, hydrocortisone. Yeah, maybe those are just other meds. So basically,
Okay.
wondering, do I still take the meds if I'm on a high fiber diet? I think.
Oh goodness. Yeah, well, that would be a big question of why you're on hydrocortisone. That's an anti-inflammatory, suppresses the immune system. So people that have like transplants might be on hydrocortisone. People that have really bad asthma, or there's a reason for hydrocortisone, and most people don't take that unless they have adrenal insufficiency or some really serious inflammatory issue. So so that's something you have to deal with your doctor, because sometimes taking extra cortisone causes the blood pressure to go up as well. And so they'll add on a blood pressure medication because of this. So because of this medication, you need that medication. So the high fiber diet is a great idea anyway for most people. Most people, that is a key to decreasing inflammation in the intestines and in the body. So the question, if I'm on a high fiber diet, do I need the medications? Probably not, but you better talk to your doctor about that, because I don't know why you're on the medications in the first place.
Or I did see another note about a CPAP numbers were two. Unless he was meaning C-peptide. He's using voice text, so it's not working quite.
Okay. Oh, C-peptide. Yeah, the C-peptide of the 2, that's good. That means your pancreas is making insulin. So it would be enough. So you probably have good insulin levels, and if it's not over 4, then it's probably not too much insulin. So so you could probably control it with diet pretty well.
Okay. Valerie says my daily blood sugars are now first thing in the 4s and at supper in the 5s, at bedtimes 6 to 7. So what would those numbers be here?
Okay, that would be equivalent in the 4s is like 70s, 80s. That's really normal. In the 5s is up to 100. 5 point something is usually just a little over 100. 6s, 7s are in the 120s, 130s, that kind of range. So that's kind of the range of mild insulin resistance, because during the day or your fasting numbers are normal. So that 4 to 5 range in the 4s is really good for a fasting specimen. So that's pretty good.
All right. Let's see. Try to get to the ones that I know you can answer and I can't. Catherine said started insulin on May 15th. Lantus, 15 to 20 units at night, and Humalog before meals if needed. Sugar is above 160. Not feeling good, gained about 15 pounds, sore injection sites, overall still worse. At what A1C can I wean off insulin The last test in May was at 13.4. Got your program and on low carb and high plant-based diet.
Wow. Okay, 13.4. That's a pretty high A1C. Your average blood sugar is in the 300s. It's pretty high. That would be like someone from Canada, the blood sugars being in the 10s. It's pretty high. So the question is, when can I get off the insulin? Well, insulin might be the wrong thing for you because insulin causes the weight gain in the first place. So, at what point do I stop taking a toxin? Like the sooner the better, right? At what point do I stop eating mercury? The sooner the better. So I don't know what your numbers are, but if you test the C peptide, why the C peptide? Well, if you're injecting insulin and you do an insulin level, then you don't know how much of that is from what you injected in your Humalog or your Lantus, your long-acting insulin. It's going to be part of that, and it's going to be mixed up. So you can know exactly what your pancreas is putting out by doing a C peptide. So if your C peptide is normal, that means that you have an adequate level of insulin from your pancreas, in which case that you can do this with diet. That's the point, is you could do phase 1 and not need insulin at all, injections.
And Catherine asked, should a C peptide test be taken after fasting or not? And what are good levels?
Yeah, ideally fasting, and the good level, 0.8 to about 3. Those are the numbers. If it's below 0.8, then you're not making very much. If it's above 3, then you're probably making too much. But that's just what the pancreas makes. That's not an insulin level. That's just what your pancreas is putting out.
I'm kind of feeling like this theme. I've heard this 3 times today about seeing what's going on under the hood. And sometimes we've got to do some testing to find out exactly what's going on. Someone here, Danella said my A1C went from 6.7 to 5.9 this year and cut the lowest dose of metformin to half a pill a day. I want to be all the way off of it. My labs 3 years ago showed Hashimoto's antibodies, but I was only informed of Graves' disease. I'm getting new labs at the end of this month after being taken off methimazole a week ago with lots of physical fatigue. What other tests you were referring to find out why my thyroid levels are off at times?
If they're off at time, gosh, there's a lot of conflicting things here that there's something going on that you need to know. So the tests I was talking about, look at antibodies. So that you said your TPO, thyroid peroxidase antibodies, were high. But look at the thyroglobulin antibodies, look at the levels of thyroglobulin, the free T4 and total, free T3 and total, TSH. And then the other ones that I was talking about before is do a scan, do a thyroid scan and see if you have hot nodules that could be causing the excess to be produced. Because sometimes when you're making excess, then you make excess of the TPO enzyme, which they get antibodies against it. But that's not Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Hashimoto's is where you actually have inflammation of the gland because of those antibodies. So it's an autoimmune disease, which doesn't, it doesn't fit into everything that you've been talking about. So I don't know. I'd have to see the tests and ferret all that out.
Really quick, Sienna says my right lower leg has developed skin issues like dark to purple skin color since last year. It can be very itchy. My doc suggested to wear compression socks to help vein blood circulation. Do you think Nervala will help?
Nervala helps the arterial circulation, but if you need circulation in the veins, there are a couple of things that might be helpful that have been shown to actually improve venous function. One of them is pycnogenol, and it's about 300 milligrams a day. The other one is an herbal extract called horse chestnut seed extract. So the horse chestnut improves circulation. Both of those could improve circulation if it's a venous problem. it's really hard to know. I mean, if it's purple, then there's something with the veins going on there, and wearing the compression hose can be helpful if that's a venous problem. If it's purple, look at to see if there's an arterial problem too. You know, if you have an ultrasound of the arteries of the legs, of both legs, and make sure there's blood flow from the arteries, because that's something that could happen too.
Okay, I have to ask one more question. Brian said their water is very hard. They're using a bunch of filters. Does your water have any effect on diabetes?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Like hard water. If water is very hard, that's calcium. Not a big deal, really. So yeah, if you filter it, then they usually have like a softener, and all the softener do is ion exchange. So they exchange a calcium for 2 sodiums, and then you fill it up with sodium, or you can get potassium now, so you can exchange potassium for calcium, and that softens the water. But I don't see how that would affect diabetes. I don't
Maybe
see
not
any.
hard water, but any other of the toxins that are in water?
I suppose if someone reacts to them, there are reports of people getting titanium and causing diabetes, and I think that was in Texas or something like that. There was titanium in the water, and that caused diabetes. Titanium dioxide.
Okay. All right, Dr. Saunders, thanks so much. You get to go be with your patients. See you tomorrow. See you next week.
Okay, see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, guys, I'm going to quick see if I can answer a few more of these questions here. Okay. I thought I could. Okay, Morris said, how about heavy cream in my coffee? You know what? If you tolerate dairy, I think that's okay, because if it's, as long as it's heavy whipping cream, it is low carb. You know, if you really, I mean, I would recommend even going organic if you can. Just, those are just my thoughts, but it is a low carb thing if you can tolerate dairy. Iman says, I tried strawberries with stevia. I believe like sitting at the pool last night. My blood sugar this morning after fasting was 103. Still prefer with a little or no sugar. Okay. And that's kind of the beauty of going through the phases in this diabetes solution kit, is that you find out what your body responds to. You know, when your blood sugars are high and, you know, maybe you've been eating all sorts of things, you don't know what affects your blood sugar, right? But as you sort of clean out and turn off the water, as Dr. Saunders says, you get to slowly add things back in and see how your body responds, which is a really cool thing. It's basically like having a continuous glucose monitor that tells you immediately, because you're going to notice how you feel also. But that's the beauty of this. You can try to start adding, for example, strawberries in to see how you do. Some people do great with them, some maybe don't. And I also suppose it depends on if you are eating lots of other sugar with it, or if that's your only sugar for the day. So, what food can I add for phase 2 of the diabetes solution kit? Okay, and I think, did you ask about the strawberries? No. So I would just start slow, and I think it talks about that in this solution kit. So stick with the foods that you normally are eating on phase 1 that you know you do well with, and then maybe you're going to add in, maybe you want to do a fruit, maybe you're going to add in some berries, and you slowly do that, but don't add other things with it. Just make sure that for the day you're only adding berries along with your safe foods, so that you can see if you get a spike, then you'll know it was the berries, right? But that is what I would recommend, is just slowly adding one food at a time. You know, don't try 3 foods at a time so that it's confusing. And you can try different things. Okay. Valerie said, I go to a maple sugar tree farm for my maple syrup. I've never had a problem with the sugar affecting my sugar. It depends on whether it's dark or light. The light I've used every spring. It doesn't affect me at all. It's the cooking time. Very interesting. That's good to know. See, and everyone, you know, could be a little bit different, but good information. Anything else? Okay, I'm not sure that I can answer any more of these, but a reminder, bartonwebinar.com is kind of the hub for all that we do or anything that you want to learn. And you can use code webinar25 to save 25% on the diabetes solution kit or any of our supplements. So make sure you do that. And thank you for joining us for episode 200. Thanks for reminding everyone about that, Brian. That is awesome. He said he's very happy that he was able to attend. Thank you to the whole group. Thank you for helping me to be healthy. Brian, you're so awesome. Thank you. And John says, these webinars are a morale booster for me. I've lost approximately 6 pounds since starting in December, but keep trying to identify and omit what does the most harm. For example, breakfast cereals, white bread, and chocolate chip cookies.
All right.
I'm going to save that here. I'm going to send that to our team because they like to hear these things too. Not everybody gets to be on the webinars, and I get to hear all these good things, but not everyone does. So I try to make sure that I send those to them too.
Can we get some virtual high fives going in your Zoom? Hit that raise hand. Leslie, we're all giving you high fives for
Nice.
episode 200. Woot, 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 woot. See how many we can get here.
Someone had asked too, are there more recipes? Here's the fun thing. These are just some basic ideas to get you started. I would say use Google. Look for low carb recipes. You will find so many options. You can get real specific. Maybe you know you like fish or chicken, or maybe vegan or high fiber or whatever it is. Just do some Google searching now that you know some of the foods that you like or things you tolerate well. Yeah, you'll be able to find some things. Look at all these high fives. That's awesome.
Leslie, I had an idea. I'm going to throw it out here to everyone. What do you think if we were to possibly have a food product? I was thinking grass-fed beef sticks. What do you think
Oh,
of
I
that?
love those. Yes, let's do that.
Find a really good, healthy, no preservative, like grass-fed good beef. Like I think our partners,
Yes.
Paleo Valley, they have some. So it's like, we could
Yes.
probably figure out.
Hold
how
on
to-
it, guys.
Yeah.
You're feeding my inner beast, Roy said.
So yeah, what do you think of that? That'd be a
I
new
think that
category for
is
us.
phenomenal. That is a phenomenal idea.
I'm researching it. I think we could do it because that's one of those products, like it's high protein, no carbs,
Yep.
or super low carbs. I mean, protein is super important, and it just helps you feel full, and it helps you get by, you know.
Yeah, and of course, just like Dr. Saunders says too, it's better if you can be in your kitchen making some food that isn't packaged, but that isn't always life, right? So we need some quick options. And that would be a really good one. There's some really good. I mean, I've even seen like the bison.
I was just gonna say, yeah, maybe
yeah,
bison. Like we're in
that-
South Dakota. Like
Yes, there's a brand. I can't remember the brand. I can see it, but yeah, that might be something fun to explore. The biomanufactured products scare me, as they should.
Mhm. Yeah, none of this GMO crap. We'll get some good grass-fed beef and bison, and
That would be. Why didn't we think of that sooner? Can't believe
maybe
this.
I'll
has
have to
never
get
come up.
what do you think Amanda would do if I brought a cow home to graze on our lawn? She was out doing a leaf blower on the front steps during the webinar. I had to go out and raise my voice a little bit.
Chomps, yes, Chomps is a good brand. Yes. Sorry, I just saw
Chomps?
that come in. Yep.
Mm,
I've gotten that. And then I cannot think of that other brand though. I know they have the bison one, and they even have one that's like a spicy.
To start with an F, like Force of Nature. I think that's
don't
one
think
I've
so.
had
I
before.
don't think so.
Yeah, any others that you guys like? Throw the link in the chat here. I'll do some research. So bring a whole herd home. Hey, we've got a couple extra acres. We could probably have cows. Actually, we have cows right next door to us sometimes that the farmer brings in.
Maybe I'll need to move back to an acreage. Oh, here it is. I found it. Icon, I think, is the one I was thinking of.
Like
No,
Icon.
Epic. They're Epic bars
Okay.
called Epic Bison Bars. They're really good
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So
Paleo-
fun. Great idea. You guys, thanks for being here today. We appreciate it. Now, look, you get to be a part of our brainstorming process. This is how things happen pretty organically like that, but it's fun.
Yeah, for sure. And if there was one other type of good healthy snack or product or food or whatever, like maybe protein powder or something, like what else? What are some other products that you guys use that helps you stay low carb that maybe we don't offer, but we maybe could? I've got connections. Anything else? Is beef sticks it? What else? Flavored water. Yeah, and I've seen some like electrolyte powders that you can add to your water, or even like the squirt bottles of electrolytes that can. Yeah, the only problem, Dr. Saunders isn't a big fan of that because there's usually some sort of artificial sweetener or stevia or something like that. But hint water, yeah. So that, yeah, just a
The same, yeah.
tiny taste. We have like fiber greens is the drink that tastes really good, like the green apple or the iced tea lemonade.
Bone broth. That's a good
bone
idea.
broth. The broth itself, or you could also do like bone broth protein powder, which is Ancient Nutrition has some good stuff there.
Yeah, I've used that. But bone broth itself, Dr. Saunders talks a lot about fasting, and he will mention that if, when you do eat, he recommends bone broth. So something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, when he first started talking about that, nobody made bone broth that you could get in the stores. We used to have to do the old school thing where you had put the bones in a stock pot or in a crock pot for a day and a half. Now you can just go buy it in a cute little container and bring it home and heat it up. So
yeah.
And the bone broth has protein too, so it's good. Okay, cool. That was fun.
Ginger root products. Yeah, good stuff. Well, all right.
Cool.
Good feedback.
Thanks, guys. This was fun. Joe, thanks for hopping on, and we will see some of you tomorrow. If not, next week. Same time, same place.
Woohoo, for 200.
Yes.
201. Heart health is what? Like 14, 13, 12?
14, I think. 14.
All right.
Pretty sure. Yeah. Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.